Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 32 by Senator Pavley, an act relating to greenhouse gases.
Senator Pavley.
Thank you very much, members. I wanted to give you a little historical perspective before I present on SB 32. For those of you who were around back in 2001, we actually had quite a few hearings on how climate change was affecting California. Interestingly, we talked about earlier melt of High Sierra snowpack, less snow and more rain at higher elevations. We talked about sea level rise along our 1,100-mile coast. We talked about extreme weather patterns, drought and wildfires. We talked about the link between climate change and greenhouse gas emissions and health impacts related to warmer temperatures, asthma, and other kinds of problems. That was back in 2001 with top scientists here. And you know what? California's been real unique. No one was debating whether there was climate change or not. So I haven't heard that discussion here today. We're talking about policies, not the science. I think that says volumes. The first bill introduced along this journey was back when I was a freshman legislator. It was AB 1493. It had to do with cleaner cars. And yes, it was on the job killer list, of course. Change sometimes is difficult. You know, California, under the Federal Clean Air Act, can pass more stringent tailpipe emission standards because of the concern for air pollution. Mobile sources are #1 source of air pollution. That's from primarily cars and trucks. And it's our #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions. There were lawsuits when this bill was passed and signed into law by then Governor Gray Davis. It barely passed in the Assembly. Governor Davis had a great quote when he was signing the bill. He said, "The sky isn't falling, it's just getting cleaner." And Gray Davis, if you're listening, you were right. We had a lawsuit, Supreme Court decision, 5-4, won there. But look, let's fast forward today and all these concerns about whether we could do this. We now have a broader national policy. Senator De Leon mentioned that, where all states in Canada and around the world, you're seeing a broader choice of vehicles. We are making a real dent in cleaning up our air supply, particularly in areas like the Central Valley and Southern California, despite our dramatic increase in population. You're seeing more fuel-efficient cars. Do you know by 2025, because California standards has now been embedded in an increase in corporate average fuel efficiency, the CAFE standards, cars will be averaging 54 miles per gallon. And what motorists like best, these more fuel-efficient cars are saving you money at the pump. And yes, we're reducing dependence on foreign oil. That was a great win for California. It was controversial at the time. So fast forward to 2006. I have to mention to you, out of 120 legislators, 4 of us are still here today from 2006. I mean, doesn't that speak volumes? And so for those of us who were here to talk a little bit about this, I think is important. What was AB 32? AB 32 came from Governor Schwarzenegger's executive order on midterm targets. He signed an executive order on World Environment Day in June of 2005. I took his midterm targets, which seemed like a reasonably good idea at the time, and put them in AB 32, but also meshed in AB 32 was the executive order by Governor Schwarzenegger that extended the targets to 2050. So what is in AB 32? It's a multi-sector approach. The policies embedded in AB 32, I think most Californians greatly applaud and celebrate. What's in there? Cleaner cars, more fuel-efficient cars. Most people agree with that. It pulls off the charts. The Energy Commission's amazing work on appliance standards. 40 years ago, talking about increasing energy efficiency in refrigerators was controversial. Look how far we've come. Refrigerators are not the energy hogs they once were in people's homes, and they're affordable, correct? Also embedded in AB 32 is the renewable portfolio standards administered by the PUC. right? We've gone from 20% to 33%, and with Senator De Leon's leadership and the governor's looking at 50%. The major CEOs of all the solar companies in California told me last January we would not be here and successful as business leaders without these policies in AB 32. They sent the signal, and working with the PUC on the RPS. By putting a cap on emissions in AB 32 and a rollback to 1990 levels by 2020, we have sent an incredible signal to the marketplace. Who came out and talked about putting a cap on emissions and then adopting market-based mechanisms? It really wasn't the environmental organizations, a few perhaps, but not many. It was top business leaders, not only in California, but from around the country who came to California, who talked about what they wanted is a market-based approach. Yes, put a cap on emissions, send that signal, and they said they'll deliver. And boy, have they. Did you know over $30 billion of venture capitalist money, private money is poured into California? We've seen an amazing increase in business opportunity in everyone's districts. We can do more and we can do better. We developed an amazing coalition of supporters. Again, the business community, very engaged in AB 32. Water agencies, health organizations, because of their concern and link between climate change and air pollution. We've adopted new policies, and this is where the legislature should step in, continuing to sort of push the envelope, if you will. I had the pleasure of working with Senator Laura last year on cleaner freight, really important for air pollution purposes, and keeping California the economic engine it is on trade, but without compromising our air policy standards. AB 32 was so popular when it was approved, we had 45 co-authors in the Assembly on the bill. Governor Schwarzenegger signed the bill, and he said, AB 32 is not a choice between a healthy environment and a sound economy. We can do both, and Governor Schwarzenegger, you were right. So let's fast forward to today. I introduced, because I'm numerically challenged, SB 32. I keep the numbers the same. It was very convenient. It extends AB 32. It simply extends the targets from 2020 to 2050, consistent with Governor Schwarzenegger's executive orders, consistent with what's embedded in AB 32, and consistent with Governor Brown's midterm orders of a 2030 midterm standard. This bill is simply about putting into statute these targets. I think it's very important for the legislature to put things in statute and not just operate by executive orders, not only for buy-in from the legislature and the oversight that comes with it, but also sending that long-term signal to the private sector that California's policies will be in place for a long period of time. This is the time to invest in California. We're providing regulatory certainty, and we're sending that strong market signal once again to the private sector for innovation and investment in new clean technologies. So this bill moves forward the discussion because we've seen the success of the car bill and AB 32 and the good work from the Energy Commission and CARB and the PUC to move us forward. What is fascinating to me is how the coalition of supporters keeps growing. We have businesses today like biofuels and biodiesel who really applaud us increasing our diversity of our fuel supply to create more competition in the marketplace when it comes to fuels. We're seeing investment by solar and wind and geothermal companies. We're having a lot of support from entities like Dignity Health and healthcare providers. They get it. People in Congress are stepping up and endorsing this bill, like Congresswoman Karen Bass and Judy Chu, and the list goes on and on. So we have a lot of work to do. This needs to continue forward. Legislators should put things in statute for enforcement and oversight provisions. And what we haven't done in California is really picked winners and losers. We've created a market for competition in the private sector, And to the state so far, the technologies that have come out of California businesses and energy efficiency and building standards have been absolutely remarkable. Let's continue this journey, and I want to thank Senator Kevin De Leon for his outstanding leadership. The governor has been supportive of these goals and policies for many, many years, and I look forward to working with all of you to implement this bill from now and into the future. Ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Pavley. Senator Stone?
Thank you, Mr. President. It probably comes as no great surprise to anyone on the Senate floor that I rise in opposition to SB 32 with all due respects to the author. The author states that AB 32 has received tremendous taxpayer support throughout the state. Well, I can tell you in the 28th Senate District, that is certainly not the case. Most elected officials there have had great problems with the implementation of AB 32 and SB 375, and we've seen it have a dramatic impact on our job base. The author says also that it has sent an incredible message to the marketplace. She's absolutely right. It has sent an incredible message to the marketplace. It says to businesses, get the heck out of the state of California, and my friends, they are leaving in droves. California's collective effect on greenhouse gases and global warming represents less than 5% of the global impacts on this theory of global warming. So we are going to saddle these regulations on our businesses where the author says we're not picking winners and losers. I disagree. We're picking losers because we're placing our businesses in the state of California on an unequal playing field, not only in the United States, but we're placing our businesses on an unequal playing field globally. SB 32 will require greenhouse gas emissions be reduced to 80% below 1990 levels by 2050. It also authorizes interim targets for 2030 and 2040. The California Chamber, representing businesses from Chico down to Calexico, from Santa Barbara to Mono County, has dubbed SB 32 yet another job killer for the state of California. I'm sure the governors of South Carolina, the governors of Nevada, the governors of Texas are watching today, and they are toasting with wine from Sonoma County. They're toasting with hopefully some wine from Temecula, I hope, as they see more businesses yet ready to cross the border with a red carpet going into their communities. We already are well on the way to reducing greenhouse gases through CARB-dictated policies. The emission reductions that occurred through the recent economic downturn should be considered before adopting any future greenhouse gas limits, and those reductions should be based on actual emissions, not estimates derived from computer modeling. There also must be credible, independent, marginal cost analysis on the strategies that have been adopted so far. Currently, we do not know what economic and environmental side effects of reaching current goals have been. We should have the opportunity to know what has worked with the implementation of AB 32 before we authorize direct CARB to develop additional climate change mandates. The California Manufacturers and Technology Association has stated assumptions that the program is ready to be expanded beyond 2020 ignores the fact that the Air Resources Board failed to produce specified analyses promised in the regulatory promise and denied requested reforms, including those recommended by CARB's own advisory boards. Specifically, CARB committed to analyze and report to the degree of which AB 32 regulations have caused job losses and pushed emission-producing industries outside the state in early 2014. However, this information is not expected to be even in draft form until late this summer. It's only reasonable to have this information before establishing goals post-2020. We have no idea what emission levels will be so far in the future or what technologies will be available to even reduce them in the future. We should be growing California's manufacturing sector rather than limiting it, since greenhouse gas reduction goals and state environmental laws require California-based manufacturers to be cleaner and more efficient than their counterparts anywhere else in the world. We're putting them at a competitive disadvantage. And there are fiscal concerns for SB 32. This measure would continue to impose billions of dollars on new costs that California businesses and our consumers, our taxpayers in the state of California are going to have to pay. And the funding will likely come from additional cap-and-trade revenues that are already being spent on a wide array of state programs. Exact costs for CARB to expand AB 32 may be in the tens of millions of dollars every year. These costs would be funded from the cost of an implementation fee on capped businesses. SB 32 would expand command and control measures while not encouraging a cap-and-trade program. SB 32 makes no mention of a market mechanism post-2020. The bill does not include cost-benefit analysis, nor is there any cost containment for the program if it becomes too expensive. The Senate Appropriations Committee has noted that the cost per ton of greenhouse gas emission reductions will increase over time. As reductions become more difficult, costs will increase. How will that affect the existence of jobs and businesses and, in turn, state revenues? My friends, we are headed down a path where no one is following us except for Quebec. We have to protect jobs in the state of California. We've had this little upsurge. We have some very strong economic times ahead of us. This just puts yet another nail in the coffin for the business climate in the state of California. I respectfully request your no vote on SB 32.
Thank you, Senator Stone. Senator Hertzberg.
You know, the arguments that I've been hearing with respect to jobs and the like, I think were appropriate when this measure was first passed nearly 15 years ago. I left the government and I started a solar company in South Los Angeles thinking I was doing the right thing. It was on Martin Luther King Boulevard in Alameda where opportunity met social justice, I used to like to say. And there was a great incentive program that the city of Los Angeles put in that was better than the incentive program that we put in. And what happened was the day that my trucks came up with my equipment from Germany, the city stopped the incentive program. I had to tear up a lot of contracts. Senator Huff likes to rib me all the time and tell me that Hertzberg business is so hard to do in California. He left this country and I did. I went to Cardiff, Wales. That statement is true, but the reasons for that statement aren't true. And the reasons for the arguments today aren't true. And let me tell you why. At the time, markets work when the financial community understands how to finance things. They couldn't figure out how to price solar. The insurance businesses didn't know how to price the risk. And so you couldn't get insurance to put a solar roof on top of a company unless it was a Google that was putting their own business or a government building. But what's happened in between? What's really happened in between? What has happened on a global basis that has worked and what has not worked? I did a bunch of interviews as I traveled the world, and I was called the Green Contrarian because I didn't want to spend any money on rat-fink politicians and consultants and lobbyists. I wanted to spend it on engineers. I didn't want to do that. But let me tell you, there are some policies that work. And it's not about creating economic incentives, but it's about creating these frameworks. If you look and you look at what's happened, it's not this renewable portfolio standard. It's 100% in the Maldives. They imported their trash in Sweden. They ran the Netherlands on they had more than production, 100% of production on wind. What's happened is if you look globally of where it's happened, it's not always been perfect. China, different market, 90,000 megawatts of wind. California, total energy production, 70,000 megawatts. Germany, challenges, no question, 38,000 megawatts of solar. Some backlash. California, 2,000 megawatts. But there has been a transformation. And that transformation goes to the arguments that I made with respect to Senator De Leon's measure. There has been a maturity of the markets. There has been a shift. Schwarzenegger liked to always talk about Silicon Valley and how much money we raised. Well, when you really did the diagnostic on that, the money was going to other countries. Well, now it's coming here. Now there really is a domestication of production. There really aren't jobs. There are new kinds of jobs. There's new kinds of industry. The financial markets, the insurance markets, all of the underlying factors that are important have now matured. I came back to this legislative body after a lot of consideration, and I did it because I think the time is now. I think the opportunity is extraordinary. I think some of the bellyaching that's going on around California about some of the problems are in fact opportunity. So I would just suggest that yes, these arguments have existed, but I really believe for someone who's been all around the place and studied this stuff, it's matured dramatically, and the opportunity for California to seize on this with good, high-paying jobs is before us, and it is our charge, and that this package of bills is a framework that begins to move this larger discussion. I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Hertzberg. Senator Wayso.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thought I'd weigh in on this as well. And, because I think the body of empirical data outweighs the arguments of the opposition, and on this matter, even the electorate supported the legislature on AB 32. I think this is what California wants, and I think we should support it. I want to read a quote from Theodore Roosevelt, and it's something that gets to this bill and this issue. He says, "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man, or in this case, the people, or the woman, who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is not effort without error and shortcomings, but who does actually strive to do the deed, who knows the great enthusiasm, the great devotion, who spends themselves in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end of the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least he or she fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. So let the critics do their job while we get busy getting things done, embracing change, promoting change, stirring the pot, and thinking up new ideas, ruthlessly reprioritizing toward a better goal, and raising the bar higher every day. And I hope we embrace that cause and work hard today on doing that on this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wayso. Senator De Leon, you may close.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, this is a very important measure. It has AB 32 that was authored by then Assemblywoman Fran Pavley and our Speaker Emeritus Fabian Nunez, set the framework, if you will, to help bolster the economy of the state of California and set realistic targets that are not beyond, but within our reach. There's a couple points I want to highlight that should not go unspoken. Bloomberg News, a highly respected business publication, just named California the best state for business. You can look at the methodology. The best state for business. Bloomberg News. California leads the United States of America in 3 sectors: the agricultural sector, the technology sector, and the manufacturing sector. In fact, the largest manufacturing sector in the state of California are 8,000 workers who produce 1,000 cars a week. That is in Fremont, California. That is Tesla. There's more venture capital that comes into the state of California than any other place. 50% of venture capital in the United States arrive here in the state of California. In fact, this may be surprising, but the data is accurate, according to the Economic Bureau of Analysis. Los Angeles County is the largest manufacturing hub in the nation, in the entire nation. Los Angeles County, the largest manufacturing hub in the entire nation. Now, just think about if we did not have AB 32. Just think of what we would be with our unemployment rates. It is absolutely correct that in the Central Valley, and in Riverside, in San Bernardino, in Imperial, unless we do something with a sense of intentionality, there will not be any economic growth. But doing nothing doesn't create economic growth. Doing nothing does not create economic growth. Being a negative Nelly and a Debbie Downer and a predictor of doomsday is not going to create economic growth in Riverside. Something that's real and tangible. These are policies that are real. These are policies that are tangible. These are policies that are set forth with a sense of intentionality to create an economy of tomorrow. That's just our reality. Look at the numbers. The methodology doesn't lie. All you have to do is break down the numbers. Just in energy efficiency alone, 330,000 jobs have been created in California. Central Valley's been hit hard. Central Valley's been hit harder than any other place. It is with great pride that we say we're the 7th largest economy in the entire world, just surpassing Brazil just recently. But when we disaggregate the data, absolutely. When you look at the Central Valley, Kings County, Fresno, Kern, Tulare, Stockton, Riverside, San Bernardino, Coachella, Imperial, all of the Inland Empire, when you disaggregate the data, those parts haven't felt the positive economic resurgence of the 7th largest economy in the entire world. That's why we have to move forward in a very strategic, intentional manner to make sure we see economic growth, that we can measure it, that we can verify it, that we give these fighting working families a chance to survive, so we can give their kids an opportunity to go on to higher education or to a good career technical education in the clean energy space. Because if we don't, well, next door to Nevada, even though they did get the Tesla battery recycling plant, and they're going to pay a pretty penny for it, at the end of the day, when you do the costs and you figure it out, you're going to find out that the taxpayers are subsidizing them more than they're actually receiving. And I want to thank our president for the hard work that he tried to do working with Tesla and his wisdom when he knew and he found out dollars and cents. It just didn't make sense for the state of California. But doing nothing does not produce jobs in the state of California. Doing something with a sense of intentionality and creating a framework, the progeny of AB 32, helps move us to another area, to another era. No pun intended, we can't be in the Stone Age. We have to be in the Green Age, the new clean energy economy. With that, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator De Leon. Just to clarify, Senator Pavley, would you like to close?
I think that was a pretty good close. I just wanted to take a few of the comments from my colleagues and just sort of answer them briefly. We are working with other states that are adopting our policies, whether it's on the lower carbon fuel standards or energy efficiency. We're continuing to model that. We're working with other countries and other provinces. I met with Glenn Murray, the Minister of the Environment for Ontario. Countries from all over the world come to California to talk to members of the legislature and our agencies that are doing a superb job. We're working with other countries like Mexico and others. We're in a fascinating place. We're in the midst of a revolution, if you will, an old economy based on fossil fuels to a new, cleaner economy for the future, and providing the jobs that go with it. We are now the 7th largest economy in the world, coming out of a horrible recession, but the one bright spot in the recession was the continued investment in clean energy and clean tech and providing the jobs throughout California in everyone's district. We have long lists of that. We have engaged heavily in energy efficiency to reduce the price of your utility bills. Our biggest challenge and goal will be diversifying our fuel supply so that petroleum-based fuels aren't the only one in the marketplace. That's why companies like with biodiesel and biofuels and renewable methane are all supportive of this measure, because they see a cap on emissions and creating that long-term price signal really important for their investors. We had a ballot measure, Proposition 23, which actually is AB 32, numbers backwards, funneled by the oil companies. Voters showed that they could see through it. They think we can do this. They see a cleaner, brighter future for California. We have unbelievable business support from the LA Business Council, the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. They think we're moving in the right direction, and I do too. And I'll close with the third governor in a row that sort of embraced this goal, and that's Governor Brown. He said in his State of the State, our task is to build for the future, not steal from it. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Pavley. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. No. Bates. No. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. No. Block. Aye. Cannella. No. De Leon. Aye. Fuller. No. Gaines. No. Galgiani. Glazer. Aye. Hall. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Hueso. Aye. Huff. No. Jackson. Aye. Lada. Leno. Leyva. Aye. Liu. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Aye. Mitchell. Aye. Monning. Aye. Morlock. No. Morrell. No. Wynn. No. Nielsen. Pan. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Roth. No. Runner. No. Stone. Vidak. No. Wykowski. Aye. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Secretary, please call the absent members.
Galgiani. No. Lada. Leno. Nielsen. Stone. No.
Ayes 22, noes 15, measure passes. Members, we are now going to take a recess until 12:45 p.m. Thank you.